The summer sun was warm on the fields of New Bizen. Children ran through the tall grass, laughing and playing. Their teachers watched them with soft smiles. It was a perfect day for a field trip. Kim Yuna was 8 years old. She had bright eyes and a curious mind. Her grandfather always told her to watch everything and remember everything. "You never know what will be important," he would say. So Yuna watched. She watched the birds in the sky. She watched her friends playing. She watched the clouds moving slowly overhead. Park Jin-ho was 10 years old and taller than most boys his age. He liked to take care of the younger children. His grandmother had taught him that strength meant protecting others. Today, he was helping Lee Sora collect flowers. Sora was only 7, small and quiet. She rarely spoke, but her eyes were always thinking. None of them saw the shadow fall across the field. The ship came down fast. It was huge and dark, blocking out the sun. The children stopped playing. The teachers started screaming for everyone to run. But there was nowhere to run. Strange creatures came out of the ship. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were black and cold. They wore armor and carried weapons that glowed with blue light. They were the Koran, and they had come to take what they wanted. High Collector Veth walked at the front of his soldiers. He looked at the humans with disgust. To him, they were nothing. They were animals. 60 years ago, his people had fought a war against these creatures. The Koran had lost that war, but Veth believed that was just bad luck. Humans were weak now. They had grown soft in peacetime. They had forgotten how to fight. "Collect them all," Veth ordered. His voice was like ice. "The young ones will sell well in the outer markets." The Koran soldiers fired their weapons. Blue light hit the teachers, and they fell to the ground, asleep. The children screamed and cried. More blue light. More bodies falling. In minutes, it was over. Yuna felt the blue light hit her. It was cold and strange. Her body wanted to sleep. But she remembered her grandfather's training. He had taught her tricks to stay awake when her body wanted to rest. She closed her eyes and pretended to fall. She made her body go limp. But inside her mind, she was awake. She kept her eyes almost closed, just tiny slits so she could see. She watched the Koran soldiers pick up the children and carry them into the ship. She counted the soldiers. She memorized their faces. She looked at the symbols on the walls and tried to remember them. Her grandfather was Admiral Kim Ti-woo. He had destroyed 300 Koran warships in a single battle. He had made the Koran Empire surrender. He had ended the greatest war in human history. And he had taught his granddaughter that knowledge was the most powerful weapon. So Yuna watched, and she remembered. The Koran threw the children into small cells. The walls were cold metal. The air smelled wrong, like chemicals and old blood. Yuna landed on top of other sleeping children. She waited until the soldiers left, then slowly opened her eyes all the way. She was not alone. Jinho was awake too. His eyes met hers across the cell. "You did not sleep," he whispered. "My grandfather taught me," she whispered back. Jinho nodded slowly. His grandmother was General Park Hyuri, the ghost of Kepler. She had killed more Koran soldiers in close combat than anyone in history. She had taught her grandson many things too. "We need to watch and wait," Jinho said. "We need to learn this ship." "I already started," Yuna said. She told him about the guards, the symbols, the layout of the corridors. Jinho listened carefully. Little Sora was awake now too. She had not been hit directly by the blue light, just caught at the edge. She was shaking with fear, but she did not cry. Her grandfather was Dr. Lee Minho. He had taught her that fear was normal, but action was necessary. "I am small," Sora said quietly. "I can fit in small spaces. I can go where they cannot see. Jinho looked at her with respect. Good. When the others wake up, we will make a plan. High Collector Veth stood on the command deck of his ship. He looked at the list of captured humans on his screen. Just numbers. Just livestock. He did not check their family names. He did not research their bloodlines. Why would he? They were just animals. Sub-Commander Torax stood behind his leader. He felt uneasy. Something was wrong, but he could not say what. The human children were too calm. They did not scream like the other species he had collected. They watched with strange eyes. Knowing eyes. Sir, Torax said carefully, perhaps we should check their identities. The humans have strict laws about their young. They may send soldiers. Veth laughed. It was an ugly sound. Soldiers? The humans have no soldiers anymore. They have farmers and scientists and artists. They forgot how to fight decades ago. No one is coming for these animals. He touched a button and the ship began to rise. Within seconds, they were in space. Within minutes, they jumped to faster than light travel. New Bison grew small and disappeared. In the cells below, 32 children sat in darkness. Most were scared. Most were crying. But 3 of them were planning. 3 of them carried fire in their blood, passed down from grandparents who had once made an empire kneel. The Koran did not know what they had taken, but they would learn. The news traveled fast. Faster than light. Faster than hope. On Earth, in the Great Hall of Heroes, Admiral Kim Taiwu was giving a speech. He stood before a crowd of thousands. Old soldiers sat in the front rows, their bodies bent with age but their eyes still sharp. Young people filled the seats behind them, listening to stories of a war fought before they were born. Peace is precious, the Admiral said. His voice was strong, even at 74. We paid for it with blood. We must never forget the cost. His communicator buzzed against his chest. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. Priority 1. Emergency. He excused himself and walked backstage. He read the message. He read it again. His face changed. The lines around his eyes grew deeper. His jaw became tight. His hands became still. The soldiers in the front row saw him return. They saw his face. They knew that face. They had seen it 60 years ago, before the Battle of Orion's Gate. They called it the Death Mask. Something terrible had happened. Far away. On a quiet moon covered in flowers, General Park Hyeri was working in her garden. She was 71 years old now. Her hair was white. Her hands were wrinkled. But her body was still strong, still fast. Old habits never died. Her granddaughter-in-law came running through the flowers. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. Hyeri listened to the broken words. Jinho. Taken. Aliens. Korin. Hyeri said nothing. She stood slowly. She wiped the dirt from her hands. She walked into her small house, past the kitchen, past the bedroom, to a door she had not opened in 40 years. Behind the door was a vault. Inside the vault was her armor. Black metal and red lights. It had carried her through 100 battles. It had made her into a ghost that the Korans still had nightmares about. She touched the cold metal. It felt like greeting an old friend. Hello again, she whispered. We have work to do. On a medical station orbiting Mars, Dr. Lee Minho was teaching young doctors. He was a gentleman with a soft voice. His students loved him. He taught them how to heal, how to save lives, how to show mercy. They did not know about his other work. The classified work. The 17 patents sealed by military courts. The compounds that could dissolve Karan flesh in seconds. The viruses that could make entire planets fall silent. He had created weapons. so terrible that the military had begged him to never use them. And he had agreed, because the war was over, because peace was better, because he wanted to be a healer, not a killer. Military police came to his classroom. His students looked scared, but the police did not arrest him. They asked for his help. Dr. Minho listened to what they told him. Then he closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, something had changed. The gentle teacher was still there, but behind his eyes, something else was waking up. Something cold, something patient, something very, very dangerous. "Take me to my laboratory," he said. The sealed one. 12 hours later, 3 old people stood in a war room. The same war room where they had planned the destruction of the Corinne Third Fleet. The same table. The same screens. The same maps of stars. They looked at each other across the table. They were old now. Gray hair, wrinkled skin. Bodies that hurt when they moved too fast. But when their eyes met, they saw something else. They saw the young warriors they had been. They saw fire that had never gone out. Captain Choinari stood at the head of the room. She was 38 years old, born after the war. She had grown up on stories of these 3 legends. Now she had to brief them on a rescue mission. Her hand shook slightly as she showed them the data. The Corin ship's path. The children's last known location. The military assets available. "The council has approved a rescue operation," she said. "We have fast ships ready to pursue. I can offer you observer status on the mission, if you wish to." Admiral Taiwo held up his hand. She stopped speaking. "Observer status?" he said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room. "Captain, I did not come here to watch. I came here to remind the Corinne why they surrendered." General Hayari nodded slowly. "My armor is already on my ship. I will lead the ground assault personally." Dr. Minho placed a small case on the table. "I brought contingencies. I hope we will not need them. But hope is not a strategy." Captain Nari looked at these 3 old people. She saw tired bodies and gray hair. But she also saw something else. Something that made her understand why the Corinne had surrendered. Something that made her grateful these people were on humanity's side. "The operation has a name," she said. "Operation Homecoming. Officially, it is a rescue mission. Unofficially," she hesitated. Admiral Taiwo finished for her. "Unofficially, we bring our children home. And we teach the Corinne a lesson they will never forget." He looked at his old friends. "Shall we begin?" General Hayari smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Let us remind the galaxy what humans do when you touch our young." Dr. Minho opened his case. Inside were vials of different colors. Some held cures. Some held death. "I am ready." Across human space, old soldiers heard the news. They put down their farming tools. They kissed their families goodbye. They took their old uniforms out of storage. The TSS Remembrance, Admiral Taiwo's legendary flagship, was pulled from a museum. In 36 hours, it was ready for war. The hunt was about to begin, and somewhere in the darkness of space, sleeping children dreamed of home, not knowing that their grandparents were coming for them with fire in their hearts and death in their hands. The TSS Remembrance moved through space like a shark through dark water. She was old, but she was deadly. Her guns had been cleaned. Her engines had been restored. Her crew was made of veterans who had come out of retirement for one last mission. Admiral Kim Taiwu sat in his command chair. It felt familiar, like he had never left. 60 years melted away. He was young again, hunting enemies through the stars. "Report," he said calmly. "We have their trail, Admiral," a young officer said. "The Corin ship jumped 3 times, but they left traces. We are 2 hours behind them." Taiwu nodded. "Close that gap. I want to be on top of them before they know we are coming." Behind the Remembrance, 6 more warships followed in perfect formation. General Hyeri stood in the cargo bay of one ship, checking her soldiers. They were young and strong, the best humanity had. Many were grandchildren of people who had served under her in the war. "You trained on my stories," she told them. "Now you will live them. Our children are on that ship. We will bring them home. And any Koran who tries to stop us will learn why their grandparents surrendered." The soldiers nodded. Their eyes were hard. Their weapons were ready. On another ship, Dr. Lee Minho sat in a small laboratory. Around him were medical supplies, healing things, good things. But in his pocket was a single vial. Inside that vial was death. A compound so terrible that even the military had tried to destroy all records of it. But Minho had kept one sample, just in case. He hoped he would not need it. But he was ready. Far ahead, the Corinne harvester ship continued on its path. High Collector Veth sat in his command chair, drinking victory wine. The collection had been easy. The humans had been weak, just as he expected. Soon he would sell the young ones in the outer markets. He would be rich. He would be famous. Sub-Commander Torak could not relax. He walked the corridors of the ship, watching the cells where the human children were kept. Something was wrong. He could feel it. The children were too quiet now. They did not cry. They did not beg. They whispered to each other in their strange language. They watched the guards with calculating eyes. They moved in small groups, organized and careful. These were not the actions of frightened animals. In the largest cell, Jinho had become the leader. The other children listened to him because he was calm and strong. He did not panic. He made plans. "Yuna, what have you learned?" he asked quietly. Yuna drew a map on the floor with her finger, showing the others. "There are 12 guards. They change every 4 hours. The control room is at the top of the ship. The communication systems are here." She pointed to a spot on her invisible map. "If we can break those, they cannot call for help." Little Sora crawled out from a ventilation duct. She was dirty and tired, but her eyes were bright. "I found the medical bay. They have chemicals there. Some of them look like sleeping medicine. I can read a little bit of their writing." Jinho nodded with respect. "Good. Can you get to the chemicals without being seen?" Sora thought about it. "Yes, the ducks go everywhere. They think I am too small to matter." "Their mistake," Yuna said. "They made their plan carefully." Sora would collect chemicals from the medical bay. Yuna would guide them through the ship using her mental map. Jinho would lead the other children when the time came. They could not fight the Corinne directly. They were too small, too weak. But they could create chaos. They could make trouble. They could help whoever was coming to rescue them, because someone was coming. They all believed this. Their grandparents would not abandon them. On the command deck, Sub-Commander Torak went to speak with High Collector Veth again. "Sir, I am worried about the human children. They are acting strangely. Perhaps we should—" Veth cut him off with a wave of his 4 hands. "You worry too much, Torak. They are prey animals. They have no weapons, no power, no hope. What can children do?" Torak tried again. "Sir, during the war, the war is over." Veth shouted. "The humans are nothing now. Farmers and dreamers. They have forgotten how to fight. No one is coming for these animals. Now leave me alone." Torak bowed and left. But his worry did not fade. He went to check the ship's sensors. Everything looked normal. Empty space behind them. No pursuit. Then a message came through. An old frequency. A channel that had not been used since the war. Torak felt his blood turn cold as he read the words. "We are coming. And we remember everything." He ran back to the command deck, shouting for Veth, but Veth only laughed. Ghost stories, the High Collector said. Tricks to scare us. There's no one out there. Elder Matriarch Sayla had been quiet until now. She was a political observer, sent by the Corinne Council to watch the collection. She was old enough to remember the war. Old enough to remember the human ships filling the sky like angry stars. Old enough to remember the day the Corinne Empire had begged for mercy. She heard the message and felt fear like she had not felt in 60 years. "Show me the manifest," she demanded. "Show me the names of the humans we collected." Veth was annoyed, but he showed her the list. Sayla read the names. Her hands began to shake. She read them again. Kim, Park, Lee. She knew these names. Everyone who survived the war knew these names. "You fool," she whispered. Her voice was full of horror. "Do you know what you have done? Do you know whose children you have taken?" Veth looked at her with confusion. "They are just animals. What does it matter whose children they are?" Sayla grabbed him with all four hands. "Kim Taiwu, Park Harry, Lee Miho. These children belong to them. To the humans who destroyed our fleet. To the ghost who killed 47 of our warriors with her bare hands. To the doctor who created weapons that could end our entire species." The color drained from Veth's face. "They are coming," Sayla said. "And they will not show mercy twice." High Collector Veth finally understood his mistake. His hands were shaking. His hearts were beating too fast. He screamed orders at his crew. "Maximum speed. Get us to car in space, now." The ship's engines roared. They pushed harder than they had ever pushed before. Warning lights flashed. The hull groaned with stress. But Veth did not care. He needed to escape. He needed to reach safety before the humans found him. Elder Sayla watched him with disgust. "It is too late," she said quietly. "You cannot outrun what is coming." "Shut up," Veth screamed. "We will make it. The humans are slow and old. Their warriors are all dead or retired." As if answering his words, space itself seemed to tear open. Light flashed in 7 places around the harvester ship. When the light faded, 7 human warships hung in perfect formation, surrounding the Corinne vessel like wolves around a wounded animal. There was no escape. Admiral Kim Taiwu looked at the main screen of the TSS Remembrance. The Corinne ship was small and ugly. Inside that ship was his granddaughter, his blood, his family. "Open all channels," he said calmly. "Let them hear me." His voice filled every speaker on the Corinne ship. In the cells, the children heard him too. Yuna's eyes went wide. She knew that voice. "This is Admiral Kim Taiwo of the Terran Navy. You have my granddaughter." In his command chair, Veth froze. The name hit him like a physical blow. Kim Taiwu, the destroyer of the Third Fleet. The human who had turned 300 Corinne warships into dust and debris. The man who had ended the war with fire and blood. "I am going to say this once," the Admiral continued. "Release the children. If you do this, most of you may live. If you refuse, I will teach the Corinne Empire a second lesson. You have 60 seconds to decide." Veth's mind raced. He was trapped. He could not fight 7 human warships. He could not run. But maybe he could bargain. He grabbed his communicator. "Human Admiral, if you attack, I will kill all the children." "I will," the Admiral's voice cut through like a knife. 45 seconds. Veth turned to his guards. "Go to the cells. Get the children. Kill them if..." But it was too late. Deep in the ship, Jinho heard everything. He looked at Yuna and Sora. They nodded. It was time. Sor had spent hours collecting chemicals from the medical bay. She had mixed them carefully, following instructions that her grandfather had once taught her for emergencies. The mixture was simple but effective. Sleeping gas. The children moved fast. They opened the ventilation panels that Sora had already loosened. They poured the chemicals into the air system. The gas spread through the guard quarters, through the corridors, through every room where Corrin soldiers were waiting. Guards fell asleep at their posts. Soldiers collapsed in the hallways. By the time Veth's orders reached them, half his crew was unconscious. Yuna ran to the communication controls. Her small fingers moved quickly, pulling wires and breaking connections. The ship's internal systems went dark. Veth could not give orders anymore. He could not call for help. He was blind and deaf inside his own vessel. 20 seconds, the Admiral said. General Park Hyeri was already moving. Her assault shuttle slammed into the Corrin ship's airlock. The metal screamed as her team cut through. And then she was inside, wearing her black armor, moving like death itself. The Corrin guards who were still awake saw her coming. They fired their weapons. The blue light bounced off her armor like rain off stone. She did not slow down. She did not stop. She was 71 years old. But in that armor, she was the ghost of Kepler again. She moved through the corridors like a nightmare made real. Any Corrin who stood in her way fell. Some she hit with her armored fists. Some she threw against walls. Some she simply walked through, as if they were made of paper. Behind her, young soldiers followed. They had trained for years. They were the best humanity had. But even they struggled to keep up with the old woman in black armor. Dr. Lee Minho entered the ship with the medical team. He moved carefully, stepping over unconscious Corrin bodies. His hand touched the vial in his pocket. He did not need it. The children had already done most of the work. He found them in the main cell block. 32 children, scared but alive. Sora ran to him and grabbed his hand. "Grandfather," she said, "I made the sleeping gas. Like you taught me." Tears ran down the old doctor's face. "You did perfect, little one. Perfect." On the command deck, High Collector Veth tried to escape. He ran to a small shuttle and launched into space. He would flee. He would hide. He would survive. The TSS Remembrance's gun spoke once. A single perfect shot. The shuttle's engines died. The tiny craft drifted helplessly in the dark. Admiral Taiwu's voice came through the shuttle speakers. "Did you think I would let you run? After you took my granddaughter? No, you will face justice. Death would be too kind for you." Veth was captured. His crew surrendered. The battle, if it could be called a battle, was over in minutes. General Hyeri found Jinho standing guard over a group of younger children. He was holding a piece of broken metal like a weapon. His eyes were fierce. "Grandmother?" he asked, looking at the armored figure. She removed her helmet. Her old face smiled at him. "You did well, Jinho. Your parents will be proud." "I am proud." Jinho finally let himself cry. But they were good tears, relief, joy, safety. Elder Sayla surrendered peacefully. She looked at the human soldiers with something like respect. "You showed mercy once," she said to Admiral Taiwu when they finally met. "After the war, you could have destroyed us completely. But you let us live. And we repaid you with this stupidity." The Admiral looked at her with cold eyes. "Yes, you did. Remember this day, Elder. Make sure your people remember. Because if there is ever a next time, there will be no mercy left." Sayla bowed her head. "I understand." The children were moved to the remembrance. Medical teams checked them. Food was given. Blankets were wrapped around small shoulders. For the first time in days, the children felt safe. Yuna sat in the Admiral's quarters, wrapped in a warm blanket. Her grandfather sat next to her, holding her hand. "I watched everything," she told him. "I remembered everything. Like you taught me." Admiral Taiwu looked at his granddaughter with fierce love. "I know. You were brave. So brave. Will they try again? Yuna asked. The Koran? The old admiral looked out the window at the stars. Maybe someday. Predators sometimes forget their lessons. He squeezed her hand. But we will always be ready. And they will always regret it. The human fleet turned toward home, carrying its precious cargo. Behind them, the captured Koran ship drifted empty and broken. The reckoning was complete, but the warning was just beginning. New Bizen had never seen so many ships. The sky was full of them. Warships and transports, medical vessels and newscraft. The whole galaxy was watching as the children came home. Families waited at the landing field. Mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, grandparents and cousins. They had not slept in days. They had not eaten properly. They had only prayed and hoped and waited dawn when the first shuttle touched down. Silence fell over the crowd. Then the doors opened and children began to walk out. The silence broke into screaming, crying, laughing, shouting. Parents ran to their children, arms wrapped around small bodies. Tears fell like rain. Names were called out across the field. Families became whole again. Yuna walked down the ramp holding her grandfather's hand. Her parents were waiting at the bottom, their faces wet with tears. She ran to them and was lifted into her mother's arms. Her father wrapped them both in his embrace. Behind them, Admiral Taiwu stood watching, his old face soft with relief. Jinho found his family near the edge of the field. His parents, his little brother, his grandmother. General Hyeri had already removed her armor. She wore simple clothes now, looking like any other old woman. But when Jinho ran to her, she held him with arms that were still strong enough to break steel. You were a leader in there, she told him quietly. You protected the others. You made our family proud. Jinho looked up at her with serious eyes. I learned from you, grandmother. Little Sora was the last to find her family. Her parents were crying so hard they could barely stand. Dr. Minho guided them gently together, then stepped back to watch the reunion. The quiet girl who had crawled through ventilation ducts and made sleeping gas was now just a child again. Held safe in her mother's arms. In the days that followed, the galaxy learned what had happened. News reports told the story of the kidnapping and rescue. The children were called heroes. Jinho, Yuna, and Sora received medals for their bravery. Their grandparents stood behind them at the ceremony, old faces glowing with pride. But not everyone was celebrating. In the Korean Empire, there was fear. High Collector Veth was tried under interstellar law. He stood before a court made of humans and aliens alike. He had to explain what he had done and why. We thought the humans were weak, he said. His voice was empty, broken. We thought they had forgotten how to fight. We thought they were prey animals who had gotten lucky once. The judge, a human woman with cold eyes, leaned forward. And what do you think now? Veth was silent for a long moment. I was wrong. They were never prey. They were never weak. We were fools who forgot what they could do when they were angry. We were fools who touched their children. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. It was a mercy he did not deserve. 1 week after the rescue, Admiral Kim Taiwu traveled to the Korean homeworld. He went alone, without weapons or guards. He did not need them. His reputation was weapon enough that the Korean imperial court was packed with officials and nobles. They watched the old human walk through their great hall. Some remembered the war. They had seen what humans could do. They were afraid. Admiral Taiwu stood before the throne. The Korean emperor sat above him, surrounded by guards and advisors. But everyone knew who had the real power in this room. 60 years ago, the admiral began. Your people attacked humanity. We broke your fleets. We burned your stations. We could have salted your worlds and ended your species forever. The court was utterly silent. Instead, we offered peace. You accepted because you had no choice. You surrendered because we were merciful. And we believed that was the end of it." He paused, letting the silence grow heavy. "Today, you stole children. Human children. My granddaughter. The grandchildren of the warriors who defeated you. We came for them. We took them back. We could have destroyed your empire in the process. We could have ended the Karn species right then." The emperor's hands were shaking on his throne. "But we did not. Because we are not monsters. We do not kill entire species for the crimes of fools. We choose mercy again and again. But understand this clearly." The admiral's voice became hard as iron, cold as space. "If you ever again touch a human child, we will not hold back. If you ever again mistake our mercy for weakness, we will not stop. Dr. Lee Minho's laboratories still hold enough compounds to render every Korin world lifeless within a year. General Park Hyeri has trained a new generation of soldiers who are even more deadly than she was. And I have not forgotten how to destroy fleets." He took one step forward. The Emperor's guards moved to stop him, but the Emperor himself waved them back. He was too afraid to let this go wrong. Your extinction would be swift, total, and unlamented. The galaxy would not mourn you. They would thank us. Remember this. Teach your children. Write it in your histories. Humans show mercy, but humans also remember. And we protect our own." He turned and walked out of the court. No one tried to stop him. No one spoke until he was gone. The Karn Empire would remember this day for 10,000 years. Back on New Bizin, life slowly returned to normal. Children went back to school. Parents went back to work. The fields were green again, and the summer sun was warm. But some things had changed. Yuna looked at the stars differently now. She understood that the darkness was not empty. There were threats out there, but there were also protectors. Her grandfather, her family, all of humanity, watching over its children. She asked her grandfather one evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, if he thought there would be peace now. Admiral Taiwu was quiet for a long moment. His old eyes looked at the sky, at the first stars beginning to appear. "Peace is precious," he said finally, "but it is not free. It must be earned. It must be protected. It must be renewed by every generation." He looked down at his granddaughter. "The Korin know now. They will not forget. But there are other species out there. Other threats. Other fools who might think humans are weak. Then what do we do?" Yuna asked. Her grandfather smiled. It was a gentle smile, but there was steel underneath. "We live. We love. We build. We create. We make our world beautiful and our families strong." His hand covered hers. "And when someone threatens what we love, we remind them why that is a mistake. That is what humans do. That is what we have always done." Yuna nodded slowly. She understood. The universe was not safe because humans were peaceful. It was safe because the universe had learned what happened when humans were not. She looked up at the stars, and the stars looked back. Somewhere out there, the Korin were teaching their children about this day. Somewhere out there, other species were hearing the story and learning the lesson. Do not touch humanity's children. Their grandparents remember everything. And they always come.